Welcome to another Throne and Liberty video. In this one, I'm going to leverage that this week we have Verence again in the Hall of Illusion to test a few things. First, my different crossbows, then the difference between using Decisive Sniping, Brutal Arrow or neither of those. And finally, the difference between using the longbow or the crossbow on the main hand. But before that, I want to tell you something. This is the last video I'm posting as Elemenophy. Why? Because I'm done with this sneak, let's be honest. I have tried to use this sneak several times over the years and I always get bored of it. I think it's because it's too long, it's 5 syllables and it just doesn't feel right. I prefer something 1, 2, 3 syllables max. So I will be renaming to something, I don't know which one yet, but you can expect see me in game with a different name, and I also will rename the channel in YouTube to that name. Obviously the previous content will still remain. I'm not just removing anything and starting over. It's just a new, let's say a new branding strategy, okay? So having said that, let's get to it and check the test. So one thing about this test, as a scout I cannot just face tank Verence without healing and without just basically surviving. What I'm doing is just a 30-second DPS test. That's more accurate than trying to kill it, because if I want to kill it, I will need to do some mechs, I will need to be spamming healing touch, and basically I will interfere with the real purpose of the test, which is a DPS test, okay? So this result was quite surprising for me, because I was expecting Bellandir to win. So why did this happen? Okay, so first, what you just watched was the best attempt out of 10 with each weapon, okay? So this was not just a single shot and whatever happened, no. It was the best out of 10. And Malakar won by a slightly difference, but it's still won. Why? I think the reason is quite simple. Because Bellandir is the normal one, it's not the ascended version. If this was the ascended version with extra base damage, extra stat and extra poison damage, it will have won very easily. But as it is the normal version, notice that the result was still quite similar. Why is Malakar giving me better results? Basically because it has a lot of cooldown speed, both as a stat and as a trait, and also is boosting my bow base damage. So notice this is 888 and when using Malakar it's 921. So that's a significant boost, and basically most of my DPS skills come from the bow. What I'm always doing is basically using strafing, Zephyr, and just using quick fire when neither of these are ready. But these are the core ones, okay? That's why Malakar is giving me better results right now. But I'm pretty sure, as I said, that when I have the Bellandir upgraded, it's going to be better. And what about Lucien? Well, Lucien can compete with the Stew, but it's not really that far off. It was just a 4% difference if I recall correctly, so it's there. If you don't have Malakar or Bellandir, you can just use Lucien. So as you watch this test, let me make you a spoiler, and is that Decisive Sniping is going to win by a big difference. However, this was not always the case. On average, usually I get to 61, 63%, but on this particular case, it was quite good. I mean, it reached 56.5%, and that's a lot, but it only happened 1 out of 10 attempts, okay? Normally it's about 62%. So, summary, yeah, decisive sniping is better. It's the best possible way to get DPS as scout. However, is it enough to justify its usage or not? The reason is quite simple. When I'm using decisive sniping, not this one. This one, what do you want to do? You want to use decisive sniping when you are using native blessings just to benefit from this specialization and don't waste time that you could be using strafing, zephyr, or quick fire. So basically, using decisive sniping adds more cognitive load to your bosses because you need to be paying attention to the skills bar and you need to be paying attention to the bosses for the mechanics and so on. So yeah, it can provide better DPS, and if all planets align, you can get a much better DPS as in this case. But I prefer just to keep using this. Why? Because as we just saw, without using brutal arrow or decisive sniping, still I'm getting somewhat a good number, or at least what I expect as a good number, because remember that what I said, that using decisive sniping on average is about 62%, and I have more freedom to move and to pay attention to bosses mechanics, not just watching my skill bar, trying to wait, okay, now it's ready, let me use decisive sniping, all that all the time. So that's the problem we have right now with Crucifix, with Furies, that they are not paying attention to the boss. They are just looking at their skill bar, spamming all the skill, and then failing the mechs. So I don't want to do that. I prefer to pay attention to the boss, and if I have to have 1-2% lower DPS, it's a trade-off I'm willing to accept. Okay? So what happened with Brutal Arrow? If you remember in previous videos, I said that I'm always using Brutal Arrow. Why? Because of the Gale area specialization. Because basically, remember that the main DPS skill is Zephyr Nox with the damage specialization, which is going to explode the Gale stacks. So basically, we want to have the more Gale stacks the possible. So that's why we have strafing with Gale, that's why we have quick fire with Gale, and that's why we have brutal arrow with Gale. What happened? That this animation is so slow that during that period I could just be spamming quick fire and strafing, and I will also use the marks and the selfless to lower the CDs of everything. So ultimately, it's better to just ignore brutal arrow and just spam these skills. So now I'm only using brutal arrow in this skill bar, which is the one I use for Gate of Infinity, because it's the first skill I use, and then just I ignore it. I just focus on everything else. So this is the last test. Using the bow or the crossbow as the main hand. What's better? The theory says that it should be the crossbow, because basically with the crossbow you are attacking so fast that you are proccing more Medic Protest, and that will result in improved cooldown reduction from selfless diffusion, and also you are making more hits that can be critical and therefore also lower the CD by deadly mark. However, this is the thing I have tested more since I started playing Scout, and I don't know why, for whatever reason, the bow always gives me better results. Not that much better, but better results. And to be honest, I don't know why. And I'm going to explain you why. Because if we look at the crossbow, if we look at the longbow, what do we have? What do we have is the crossbow attacks so fast, right? So that's why what I was saying earlier. It attacks so fast that it should proc everything just as soon as possible. With the bow, it's a more slower approach, right? But I think just this difference in damage between using the bow, for example in this case, 804 versus 450, that 354 difference is making quite a difference in terms of overall DPS. And again, I don't know why I cannot understand this, because when you are just hitting, you are all the time spamming skills. You are rarely making some regular attacks. So I don't know why this just make such a big difference compared to this. But out of over 100 tests, it doesn't matter which crossbow I'm using, it doesn't matter nothing, the skills bar, doesn't matter anything. Always the longbow gives me a slightly better results than when using the crossbow. I also noticed in this test that Decisive Sniping actually had a more common result, about 62%, as I was saying earlier. The previous one with 56 was just something special. Normally it's about 61, 62, 63, as I was saying. So thanks for watching. Remember that this is the last video I'm posting as Elemenophy. I don't know what new name I will use, but I will let you know when I have made a decision about it. See you in the next one.